My name is Laura, and what I'm about to tell you still gives me nightmares. If you've ever spent time in a hospital, you know they can feel eerie, especially at night. But this wasn't just my imagination. I was a nurse in a small-town hospital, working the night shift. I'd always enjoyed the quiet, the lack of chaos compared to the daytime hustle. But the night everything changed started like any other. It was late autumn, and the hospital was unusually quiet. Only a handful of patients were admitted, and the hallways felt more empty than usual. The air was heavy, and the fluorescent lights buzzed faintly, casting harsh shadows. My shift began at 10 p.m. The other nurses and I did our rounds, checking on patients and updating charts. By midnight, most of the staff had retreated to the break room, leaving me alone to handle the West Wing, the oldest part of the hospital. Around 12:30 a.m., I was organizing supplies at the nurses' station when I heard it. A faint shuffling sound, like someone dragging their feet down the hall. I looked up expecting to see a patient or a colleague, but the corridor was empty. I brushed it off as my imagination and went back to my work. A few minutes later, the sound came again, this time closer. I stood up and walked toward the source. As I reached the corner, I saw a shadow move across the far end of the hallway. My heart skipped a beat. "Hello?" I called out, trying to keep my voice steady. There was no response. I decided to check the security monitors. The camera feed showed the hallway clear, but as I watched, the elevator doors at the end of the corridor opened, and no one was there. The elevator just sat, doors open, as if waiting for someone. Uneasy, I grabbed my flashlight and headed to the elevator. When I got there, the doors were still open. I shined the light inside. Nothing. Just as I turned to leave, the elevator doors began to close, but they stopped halfway and reopened, like something invisible was blocking them. A chill ran down my spine. At 1:15 a.m., I heard a call light ping from room 303. This was strange because that room was empty. It had been under renovation for weeks. Curious and a little nervous, I walked down the hall to check it out. When I opened the door, the room was dark, except for the faint glow of the call light button. The air was cold, colder than the rest of the hospital. I stepped inside and immediately felt like I wasn't alone. The shadows in the corners seemed to move, but when I turned to look, nothing was there. As I approached the bed, I noticed the sheets were pulled back, as if someone had just climbed out. That's when I heard it, a low, rasping whisper that sounded like it came from directly behind me. "Get out!" I spun around, but the room was empty. My hands were trembling as I backed out and closed the door. The rest of the night only got worse. Doors that I knew were locked were suddenly ajar. Footsteps echoed in empty hallways. A patient in another wing told me she saw a man in a hospital gown standing at the foot of her bed, but when she screamed, he vanished. Around 3 a.m., I returned to room 303, unable to shake the feeling that something was drawing me back. The moment I stepped inside, the door slammed shut behind me. The lights flickered, and a deafening hum filled the air. I turned to the bed and froze. There was someone lying there, a man pale and gaunt, his eyes wide open and staring directly at me. His mouth moved, but no sound came out. Then, in an instant, he was gone, and the bed was empty again. I spent the rest of the shift in the break room, too scared to leave. When the morning staff arrived, I tried to tell them what had happened, but no one believed me. They said I was overworked, that I needed rest. But I know what I saw, and I wasn't the only one. Over the next few months, more staff reported strange occurrences in the West Wing. The hospital eventually closed that section, citing structural issues. But I think we all knew the truth. I left that job soon after. I've never worked another night shift, and I'll never set foot in that hospital again. Whatever is in room 303, it's still there, waiting.